Happy days to you, YouTube friends. I appreciate you taking your valuable time. Time is money, and you're spending your time with me right now. And I really appreciate that. Today is a video called The Surprise Ending. You know, there's a lot of thought that goes into the title of a video and a lot of reason behind a title and a lot of reason to have a good, appropriate title. I hope The Surprise Ending, the title of this video, and the actual surprise ending is good and well and surprising to you. Have you ever reached the end of a story and realized the ending was nothing like you expected, but somehow it made everything make sense? That's exactly what Paul does in Romans chapter 11. By the way, have I ever told you that the letter to the Romans, the book of the Bible called the Romans, written by Paul, is probably the greatest literary masterpiece of all time? And when you think that Paul wrote the letter of Romans based on the Old Testament, and he has 46 approximate direct quotes in the book of Romans from the Old Testament, and around 90 plus in which he doesn't do a direct quote, but he is alluding to the Old Testament. That grabbed me the other day to think that what we read from Paul is highly influenced and taken from the Old Testament. When it came to the resurrection, he states in the book of Acts that he preaches nothing regarding the resurrection except what Moses and the prophets taught. That's just a by the way. In Romans 11, Paul builds from a massive theological argument. He walks through Israel, the Gentiles, the remnant, the grafting, the fullness, and then right when you think you know where the story is going, Paul drops the surprise ending of the entire gospel. And I want you to commit this verse to memory. It's easy to do. You could even paraphrase it to make it work for you. But it's Romans 11:32. For God has confined all to disobedience so that he may have mercy on all. That is the surprise ending. Now, don't break away from the video now because I gave you the surprise ending before we actually get to the ending, because there's much more to be said here, and it's going to be worth your while. Nobody saw that surprise ending coming. Not religion, not legalism, not human logic. And even me, after 40 years of Bible reading, this grabbed me the other day and inspired this very video that you're watching. It's the twist ending of the whole covenant story. And what Paul says next, be transformed by the renewing of your mind, only makes sense after you've seen this surprise ending. Today, I want to show you how Romans 11:32 becomes the doorway into the renewed mind, the true metamorphosis, and the transformation that only the Spirit can produce, and the transformation that more than likely you hope to experience in your life. Romans 11:32 is not just a verse, it's the equation of the gospel. Paul says all were shut up in disobedience in order that God will show mercy to all. This means the human problem was never strong enough to threaten God's solution. Disobedience didn't derail God's plan. It set the stage for mercy to be revealed. Paul is so overwhelmed by this revelation that he erupts into worship as he's writing this letter. He says, "Oh, the depth of the riches, both of the wisdom and knowledge of God." Romans 11 is the end of the story. The covenant is complete. Mercy has the final word. This is the world Paul says we now live in. This is the new heavens and the new earth that we now live in. This is Revelation 21 and 22, the new Jerusalem coming down. We're not waiting for anything to happen, except for more and more people to be transformed by the renewing of their mind and to awaken to the reality of the new age, new creations in Christ, the new heavens and the new earth. Here's what most people miss. Paul doesn't say, now that you know all this, go behave better. He doesn't say, try harder to be holy. He doesn't say, earn what God just gave you. You know, we're so used to hearing a 5 or 7 or a 3-point or a 10 or a 12-point sermon at church, and then going out and planning on putting the steps into practice. That's not how it's supposed to be most of the time, I would say. But we've got that mindset of what can I do to earn what the minister says I should have. But here's what Paul says instead. He says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Of course, Romans chapter 12 follows Romans chapter 11, and we're highlighting Romans 11 today and Romans 12. And right after Paul gives us a surprise ending of the gospel and of the book of the Bible, he goes into, hey, like a PS on the end of that. I need to share something with you. Be transformed. Therefore, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You know what therefore is therefore, right? It's bringing back to your attention what you've been reading already. Because Romans 11 is not just information, it's reality. And Romans 12 is how you inhabit that reality. The world has a pattern, a logic of earning, deserving, and separation, but mercy has a pattern too. Paul is saying, now that you have seen the mercy of God, let that mercy reshape the way you think. This is the beginning of the renewed mind. What about the world's pattern versus the mercy pattern? Let's break it down. The world's pattern says you get what you earn. You are what you achieve. You belong if you behave. You're accepted if you perform. What have you done for me lately? This is the mindset of separation. But mercy says you were included before you improved. You were loved before you believed. You were embraced before you behaved. You were chosen before you changed. This is the mindset of union. Paul is saying, stop thinking like someone who lives in the old world. Start thinking like someone who lives in the world mercy built. Romans chapter 12 is not behavior modification. It's identity revelation. The renewed mind is not self-improvement. It's not your 5 steps to success or 7 steps to living your best life now. It's not self-improvement. Here's the part that sets people free. Paul does not say transform yourself. He says be transformed. It's passive, it's receptive, it's spirit driven. The renewed mind is not positive thinking, self-help, mental discipline, trying to think holy thoughts. The renewed mind is your thinking catching up to the truth of your being. Let me say that again. Your thinking needs to catch up to your reality, the truth of your being. You're not renewing your mind to get mercy. You're renewing your mind because mercy has already claimed you. This is the beginning of true metamorphosis. Not moral effort, but identity unfolding. The psychology of resurrection, Romans 11, the covenantal resurrection, Romans 12, the psychological resurrection. Paul is saying, if mercy is the final word, then your mind must be renewed to think for mercy. This is why the transition is perfect. Romans 11, here's the world God made. Romans 12, here's how to think inside that world. Think from mercy. How transformation actually happens. This is what everybody asks and what everybody wants to know. Okay, but how does this transformation actually happen? Paul answers that in 2 Corinthians 3:18. We all, with unveiled face, beholding as in a mirror the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into that same image from the Lord, the Spirit. This is the mechanics of the transformation. The prerequisite is already met. With unveiled face, you're not trying to get access. You start from inclusion. The action is singular, beholding, not striving, not fixing yourself, not monitoring your spiritual performance, just looking, just beholding. And whom are you looking at? You're looking at Jesus. You're seeing the truth about yourself in Christ. Everything that Jesus accomplished has been credited to your account. You are the righteousness of God in Christ. You are a new creation in Christ. You are a joint heir with Christ. The same love that the Father has for the Son, He has for you, and He has for me. The result is passive. You're being transformed. This is metamorphosis, and it's something being done to you. The agent is named from the Lord, the Spirit. You are not the transformer, the Spirit is. Your job is not intention, your job is attention. So, here's the grand finale to this video and the end to the surprise ending. Here's the surprise ending of the gospel. God confined all to disobedience so He could have mercy on all. Mercy is the end of the story and the beginning of transformation. And when you behold that mercy, when you fix your gaze on the one who is your life, the Spirit does what you could never do by effort. He transforms you, not by striving, not by trying, not by intention, but by attention. This is the surprise ending Paul reveals, and the surprise beginning of a renewed mind. In closing, let me say, if this opened something up to you, if this video means anything to you and is helpful to you in any way, hit like. That really makes a difference. Subscribe if you haven't, and share this with someone that needs to hear about the grand finale, the surprise ending, God's surprise ending, having confined all to disobedience so that He would have mercy on all, and all Israel, all humanity would be saved. See you again soon, hopefully. Goodbye for now. Bye-bye.